this is where we go spoilers. Starting now. All right, so like I said, if you've read the book, there are some significant differences. Even though I didn't finish the book, there are differences. So for example, when in the book, like the biologist, the psychologist, that's what they're referred as. You don't find out their names. They don't go by their names at all. They're just referred to by what their job title is. That's not how they do things in the movie. They all have their actual names. I think it might have been cool if they had started off with names and then they started referring to them by their like classification titles, as if like the shimmer, as they call it in the movie, kind of like took over what was going on. I think that the shimmer itself was dealt with really well. It was really beautiful. You could kind of always see it kind of looming behind the tree line, even when they were inside it. I thought that was cool. One of the biggest differences I noticed is that that whole debate where they have the thing where they find like I think it's like the tunnel, but she describes it as a tower. That doesn't happen at all. The stuff with the hypnosis doesn't happen at all. So that right there is fundamentally different than the book. I never actually got to why all that stuff's happening, but that does not happen in the movie. So the movie is quite a bit different than the book from a spoiler standpoint. I don't know if I feel like maybe the ending of the movie might tie back into it a little bit more, and it's just kind of how they get from point A to point B that changes. But right there, that I feel like that was a compelling side that they didn't show. But also when I was watching the movie, I was kind of waiting for it to happen, because anytime something happened in the movie, the psychologist wouldn't do anything. Like there's one scene where Tessa Thompson's character gets attacked by something, and the psychologist, or I can't even remember what her name was in the movie, Ventress, I think, was the closest one to her, and she just stands there. She doesn't do anything. She doesn't try to shoot it. She doesn't try to rush in to save her. She doesn't try to do anything. And maybe that's just because throughout the movie, she really displays that her end goal is to get to that lighthouse no matter what. Like no matter what happens, she has to get to that lighthouse. So maybe she's not willing to put herself in danger to not get to that end point. Maybe that's what it is. But when I was watching it, because I kind of had some familiarity with the book, I was kind of expecting that. And I feel like I would have expected it anyways, because there's another scene where, you know, something goes to happen and she just doesn't move. She doesn't make any indication that she's going to try to save anybody. She's always the one that stays behind, while the other three will go after the situation. So I thought that they were going to do something with that. But as I'm reflecting on it right now, it might just be because she was so hell-bent on getting to the end of the mission, but it just kind of struck me as something that would have tied into her being kind of fishy in the book. So that was something that didn't really line up, that I was a little iffy on. I'm sorry, my throat's really dry, so I feel like I'm talking kind of wavery. But anyways, beyond that, obviously the ending got a little bit weird. Like that whole scene with the psychologist, or Ventress, where she basically gets taken over by the alien life form thing. That was kind of, I feel like that visually, that's kind of where it got a little bit ridiculous to me. Everything after that was cool. Once it turned into kind of that like swirling, never-ending thing that basically steals Lena's blood, I was like, okay, like that part looks cool, but just the like exploding into light kind of looked a little bit weird. The moment when you realize that her husband killed himself and whatever is lying in that hospital bed is some like DNA encoded duplicate, potentially alien species, was very interesting. But I don't really know how I feel about the ending with that, where it's just him there and her being like, you're not Kane. And he's like, no. And then they just hug, and obviously she still is infected by whatever had affected her DNA in the shimmer, and he's obviously not a human, or at least not really. So that was kind of weird and left open-ended. I know that apparently the director didn't really write this with the intention of going through the trilogy, so I don't know if that's where he plans to end it. It would probably be better if he did, but it leaves it a very open-ended ending, which some people just really don't like. Obviously they gave out the idea that it's supposed to be aliens, which is, that's fine. I'm cool with that. Makes sense, you know? And some kind of like alien life form crashes down with an asteroid, and the people interviewing her are like, well, what did they want? Like, they were clearly aggressive. They attacked you. They're spreading. And she's like, I don't think they wanted anything. And I would agree with that. I think they were just doing what they do. I try to imagine, like, what would happen if we ended up stranded on some kind of distant planet? What's the first thing we would do? We would establish a base camp. we would thrive in that area and then slowly start pushing out. That's exactly what humans would do. It would just look different than the way this species did. This species was able to, or this alien life form was able to alter DNA, combine DNA. That's why people were able to turn into plant forms and structures, and people just became I don't even know. I'm trying to think of the word and I can't even think, but the blooms, obviously, when everything grows out from them and they just get kind of like The Last of Us with the clickers, and they kind of just turn into like plant life basically, but they're against the walls, and you know how it's basically just modifying the DNA, and that's just kind of how they push out, and it's not necessarily to be aggressive. I don't know if it has the intention of being aggressive. That's just how they work, I guess. Obviously, it seems a little bit sinister when they can duplicate your DNA and become you after basically driving you insane. That's a little bit odd. But again, maybe that's not necessarily a sinister thing, because if it was sinister, I feel like things would have gone down differently. I didn't get the body snatcher vibe. I just got an adaptation vibe. Obviously, that all kind of circles back into the title of Annihilation. It's just various stage of things being kind of destroyed at their root, at their core, and just either transformed into something else or just completely annihilated. It kind of touches on all sorts of aspects of that, of like human tendency to try to self-destruct, nature destructing and expanding and adapting, just all like really cool stuff like that. So visually and like thematically, it was really, really well done. It's just that if you are somebody who likes a really clean, wrapped up ending, you're not going to get that. Like I said, that last fourth is just, it's pretty as hell, but it's confusing as hell. And I think it's supposed to be. I think it's supposed to just be something that you can't even conceptualize in your head. I think it's just supposed to be something that's so weird that you could never really imagine it in real life, or really conceptualize how it would happen in real life. But it's definitely something that I would see again. Probably not in theaters. Probably once it comes out on DVD or is on Netflix or something, I'd give it another watch through. I don't know if I would want it to have sequels. I'm definitely gonna finally get through these books. I know he's got a pretty weird, kind of like psychedelic writing style when he describes things. So it's like, it's not necessarily an easy read. It's very interesting, but it's not like, there's just certain types of books that are easy to read, and this one's a little bit different from what I normally get through. If you guys have finished the books and read them, please let me know if kind of what happened in the movie ties into what ended up happening in the book, the first one, or if it's just completely different. I thought it was a really interesting movie. I think some stuff for the story was done exceptionally well, and I think some things seemed a little bit kind of awkward, but maybe I just have to go through it again and see how they're tying in certain aspects of our regular life to what's happening in that particular moment in the movie. So very, very different, very interesting, and very cool concept, especially with the DNA restructuring and the just everything, how one species can become multiple species. And there's like the Pokemon Y looking deer, Pokemon X looking deer, which was super cool. And like I said, like when I was talking earlier, that bear scene is like probably one of the most terrifying scenes in a movie I've seen in a while. That was very, very chilling, very sinister. That part was very interesting. It was cool to see how different characters reacted to the shimmer, to Area X, depending on maybe what their mentality was, what their intention was. Like she said, she probably got out because she knew she had to get out, whereas other people might have had that self-destruction in mind a little bit more. And I feel like depending on how they went in is almost how they went out in some ways. Like Tessa Thompson's character was very accepting, so she just kind of became one with the environment. People that tried to fight back went insane. I thought it was interesting. It was very, very cool. I like the mystery of the area, and it's one of those things that makes you want to unravel more information, which is always cool. It doesn't always happen like that, and then I feel like that's the thing. People expect to get the answers, and this is not going to give you that. It's going to leave you wondering, which is how I think it's supposed to be more of a representation of if this happened in real life. If this kind of stuff happened in real life, do you think we would ever get all the answers? Would we know everything right off the bat? Would we know everything right away? It would probably take years, probably even longer than that, especially in a situation like this where they couldn't even get to what they needed to examine without people losing their mind, dying, or just flat out disappearing, because apparently they were becoming one with the landscape. So I can totally understand why there wouldn't be answers here and why you wouldn't get them. I think it is supposed to be more of an accurate representation if something like this happened in real life. So that is my opinion on it. If you are somebody who needs a clean ending and needs everything to be wrapped up, this is probably not the movie for you. But if you are somebody who really just appreciates good cinematography, interesting storytelling, just kind of a unique story overall, I would definitely consider checking it out. I think it's really important to kind of support movies like this, just to show big studios that it's cool to kind of step out of the box every now and again, even if it's not always a perfect outing. It was a very unique movie. So if you're in for a ride like that, definitely check it out. Natalie Portman's absolutely stunning in it. It's great to see her in different things like this. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching. Have a fantastic day, and we'll catch you all later.